What also happens in the 1920s is that we have Henry Ford come in, who is going to basically completely change how we think of industry and how we think of factories. Because he comes in with the idea for the assembly line. The basic idea behind the assembly line is, well, right now, the only people who can afford a car are the upper classes. Because the automobile is a fairly new thing. And, anytime a new technology is invented or a new convenience is invented, it's almost entirely only available to the upper classes, only available to at least the relatively wealthy.
Yep.
Because it's a new thing. There's not a whole lot of it. There's only a few people making it. That's just the nature of things. But what Henry Ford does is he says, oh, so here's what we're going to do. Right now, the only people that can afford to buy a car are really wealthy people. Like, you saw a car on the road, you were like, oh, that's a rich man. You saw a car on the road, that's the equivalent of 30 years prior seeing a carriage with a hired driver. But now the carriage with the hired driver, that guy's not even all that rich anymore. The motor car, oh, that guy's rich. That guy's got it. But Henry Ford sees that as we need to try to make everybody equal. We need to make more people be able to buy cars. Because if we're going to make a lot of money off of cars, we need to be able to sell more of them. So we need to make them available to more people.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it in economics? Or in business economics, you've got the price of the materials, the price of the labor, which includes like the time and skill, which is, the time and skill required to make it. And then you got your profit margin. Those three things added together make up the final cost of your product. Well, to keep the final cost of the product low, one or more of these things has to be as low as humanly possible. So Ford significantly drives down the cost of labor by introducing the assembly line system, which is what produces the Model T, which, by the way, wasn't even a good car. It wasn't really. It was just like, oh, here, poor people, you want a car? Here's a car. Never mind that it'll break down in less than 10 years and completely fall apart, and there's like 4 Model Ts that are still working. Never mind that. Here's a car. So, and basically the assembly line is, if we envision it along a straight line, you start here with raw materials, and by the time you get to the end of it, you have a completed product. And you have like 75 guys along this line, each of whose job is to do one specific step of the process. Mm-hmm. So that way it can just move down the line to the next step of the process. And by the time it makes it down to the line, it's a finished product, and you can just keep churning them out day after day, week after week, churn them out on a mass scale. So this is the first kind of introduction to mass production. But as we know, mass production creates something that is inferior. And on top of that, I forget exactly what it is that the man said, but so Gustav Stickley, who basically started Gustav Stickley, who started the Craftsman movement in the 1920s, started it because he was sick of the assembly line. Because after Ford starts the assembly line thing, or he may not have invented it, but he at least, made it even more popular. After Ford starts the assembly line thing, it just sort of explodes. And now everybody wants to do it because, oh, this is such a great idea. It'll boost our production and it'll boost our profits. Mm-hmm. Gustav Stickley looks at that and says, no, wait a minute. Everything coming out of this isn't as good. Everything coming out of this process is not a very good product. They only last a couple of years and then they die. And on top of that, he is seeing how the workers are being treated. Because when you're a worker on an assembly line, all you are is a cog in a machine and a step in a process, and you're basically just a meat machine yourself. Mm-hmm. Your job all day, every day, is to punch a hole in a piece of metal. And you do that 10,000 times every day. Should also be of note that, yes, Henry Ford made the car more affordable, but the first group of people, or the least likely group of people to be able to afford one of his cars, were the people that worked for him in his factories. So the people that made them were basically weren't able to buy them for at least the first 10 years of this system.
Hmm.
Because Henry Ford also introduced the idea of the company store, which was basically a form of wage slavery that said, all right, so here's the company store that's right next to the factory. Everything that you will need, all of your basic survival needs, are going to be in the store. But you can only purchase things from the store in this company currency that I am paying you in Ford coin or whatever it is.
Hmm.
I don't know what it was called. But you're being paid in this company currency that can only be used here. It's only good here, and this place will only accept that. Oh, you want real money? No, no.
They actually do that?
They
Like
did.
like no actual US dollars over the top of that?
No US dollars. You were
Really?
not paid in actual US dollars because you were paid in company money that was to be spent at the company store.
What's funny is that there's an allure of community there in a very twisted sense.
There is, but it's like the worst possible way.
Yeah.
It basically is you all work for me and I will provide everything for you and you have absolutely no freedom outside of that.
Yep. Like we've said, every insidious lie has a truth at the center of it. So,
So the song 16 Tons, which was popularized by Tennessee Ernie Ford in the 50s, has a line in the chorus, I owe my soul to the company store. The company, actually, the final line of the chorus is, St. Peter, don't you call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
yeah, somebody was very depressed about that. I wonder
That
why.
is specifically in reference to coal mining because coal mines did the same thing at this time because they're, again, you're maximizing profits. So when you're stocking the company store, you're getting the cheapest stuff you possibly can that is probably also just old stuff that nobody else wants to sell anymore. And you're making deals with other companies to be able to stock this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the dress goods and the canned goods and things. A few dress goods so your wife can make some clothes for you and your children.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, this is the system that most men in the cities are put into. Unless you operate in a trade and you can actually make a living for yourself, this is what most men are put into. And even if you did operate in a trade, if that trade is rendered obsolete by the factory system
Mm-hmm.
or by the mass production system, you now just have to go and work in the factory and work on an assembly line where your entire existence is punching a hole in a piece of metal for however long it is, 8-10 hours a day, because I think at this point some labor laws have been passed, so they start reducing the workday.
Mm-hmm.
So you're punching a hole in a piece of metal for 8 hours a day, and you know what you're being paid in. You can't even go and spend at a store that you would like. You can't even go and buy something actually nice for your wife. The only thing that you can use this for is what is in the company store. You can only use your pay to purchase what your boss is telling you can have. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds an awful lot like slavery.